So when I first stepped into a theater to watch The Raid, I didn't know it would be the day a lot of mainstream action films would be ruined for me. I've seen many action flicks and martial arts films, and anytime someone asks for a recommendation within these two genres, I without hesitation direct them to this franchise. I know no movie is perfect, but in terms of the action film, the Raid franchise comes pretty close, both of their films, and let me explain why. In my opinion, pulling off a great action sequence, especially moments of hand-to-hand combat, require a few things. Tight and concise choreography and great performers to act it out are two of the key things, but it's the fluidity and clarity of the scene that takes it to the next level. To further explain what I mean by this, I want you to watch this quick snippet from the movie Taken really quick. Now, compare it with this snippet from the film The Raid 2. See, both scenes are cool, but they are drastically different. Both of these clips are about the same length, 30 seconds each, and if we take the clip from Taken, there are roughly 52 camera cuts compared to the Raid's 8 camera cuts. Now, I'm not going to trash the Taken franchise like some people might. I actually love these films, and not in the guilty pleasure kind of way. I think they're highly entertaining, but I'd be lying if I said their fight scenes were as clear and as natural as they could be. This is largely due to how they are shot. The amount of times the camera has to cut during a fight scene in the Taken films is kind of jarring, and I'm sure that now that I've mentioned it, you at home watching this probably won't be able to unsee it now. Now, it's almost impossible to avoid cuts altogether, especially in scenes like this, and no film is perfect at doing so. But the Raid films come pretty damn close. The Raid absolutely uses cuts, but it doesn't use as many, and when they do, they're at the right moments. The impact is always seen before the camera cuts away, and this is important because it gives the scenes this organic flow to them. The lack of cuts and the fluid, kinetic-like camera movement allows us to feel like we're flies on the wall, watching these two dudes really fight instead of acting like they're fighting, and it makes a huge difference. I love the choreography and crafting that goes into these fight scenes, not just because it's amazing camera work, but because it also fits realistically within this film's universe. If you're someone like me who loves all types of action films, you want a good fight scene in them. And a lot of movies do have good fight scenes, but sometimes the action doesn't always work in those movies. Great fight scenes like The Matrix, for example, do work, and the fight scenes fit in their universe because they're heavily stylized just like how the movie was. The slow motion action sequences work because you believe it is normal to that world. Or take, for example, the more elegant fighting sequences seen in a film like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. They fit the world because it's a beautiful, mystical one. So the fighting should feel the same, and it does because it's absolutely gorgeous. And what I love about The Raid is that the world is bleak, violent, and archaic, And that's exactly how the action scenes in this film feel. The fighting feels less like a way to show off the Indonesian fighting style of silat, but more so how silat is used as a means to save our main character Rama's life. The films are all about survival, and you believe it because for how good the choreography is, it isn't necessarily pretty, it's grimy. And it's exactly how I imagine someone in Rama's position would navigate his various situations, because he would be completely on survival mode. He's not necessarily caring about whether or not his moves are performed correctly or if they look beautiful or not. Now, with this being said, the films do offer the occasional standoff sequences. In the first film, Rama and his brother facing off against Mad Dog would be a great example of this. It's a beautifully crafted scene, but even it still feels archaic as our characters get fatigued and begin to realistically fight off of impulse. Or in the Raid 2 when Rama faces off against the assassin in the last scene. This is probably the most beautifully looking scene in the entire franchise, but even it feels realistic and messy at times. As the two continue their battle, weapons begin getting used, glass ends up breaking, and it ultimately looks like two dudes duking it out simply to survive. Even here, you never feel like the fighting styles are being glamorized or are the focus of the scene, even though they are, and it feels more realistic that way. The Raid franchise to me isn't just about the action either. Both films have compelling stories and interesting characters. The first film is worlds more simple than the second film, but it's still effective. We follow a squad tasked with overthrowing a ruthless drug lord who lives within an apartment building, a high-rise building at that. The premise is simple, but we instantly understand the danger of the mission, as the drug lord lives at the top of this high-rise building, and this unit has to start all the way from the bottom of it in order to get to him. The premise alone makes for a great action film, but it's the beginning of the movie when we first meet Rama and his pregnant wife that raises the stakes without even having to say a word. Instantly, we're connected to his character, and we want him to make it out alive, so each fighting scene he's involved in is extremely intense. The Raid 2 picks up right after the first film, but with Rama being thrusted into a more undercover role as a means to uncover the corrupt police force we learned about in the first film. The Raid 2 offers a more complex storyline and gives us a deeper look into this world. It brings us in new characters who are memorable and pose even more of a threat to our main character, all while offering us the same, if not better, levels of action. The two films in the Raid franchise are responsible for some of my favorite action scenes in film history. If I had to make a top 10 list of greatest action or fight sequences, the majority of this list would probably consist of scenes from these films exactly. And I don't even have to blink an eye when I'm saying this. Especially in terms of crafting hand-to-hand combat. I don't think I've seen a film capture it better than this. And this is coming from someone who's seen thousands of action films and even martial arts films. But the Raid also excels in the fact that it still manages to offer an entertaining and well-executed story. To be simply put, after watching the Raid, mainstream action became slightly harder to enjoy. The bar was set so high, and it was only set even higher once the Raid 2 came out. I love both of these movies, and if I had to rate the Raid 1, I'd probably give it a 8.7 out of 10. And as for the Raid 2, I feel pretty comfortable giving it a 9 out of 10, simply just because of how influential this movie has been, or that it should be. Now, I know this analysis focuses on action films, but I really think The Raid and Raid 2 are just well-made movies in general. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Have you seen these films? Where do they rank amongst action movies for you? As always, I appreciate the support, and if you'd like this, please hit the subscribe button. I would love for you to join me on this journey as I give my takes on more of your favorite movies.